asked not to disrupt the rest of assembly business. So what we're going to do is ask you as you can, if you could come right into the booth and move around behind us and come right in close, so we can get close and personal with one another. No, it's okay. Just leave it. It's okay. Okay. I want you all very much for coming this afternoon, especially those of you who are in the press pool here at the General Assembly. My name is Rick Ufford-Chase. I am the Executive Director of the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship, and I was also the moderator of the 216th General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church. And on this afternoon, I'll just explain to you what we intend to do. This will be about a 15 to 20-minute press conference. We will introduce those of us who are present to speak. There will be a brief prayer to open our time together. We will share a letter that has been drafted by former moderators who are seated here and several others. Explain the context for that letter, and then we'll read that letter. We'll ask for any questions, and we will also read this afternoon a second letter that we received last night from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, urging Presbyterians to adopt occupation divestment. And we will read that letter, which we are also releasing this afternoon. We do have copies of the documents that we're working from this afternoon, and if you would like one, Jan, who's over here in the black jacket, has them available for you. So I'm going to introduce first, and then I will ask Jerry Pillay, who is the president of the World Council, Communion, thank you, of Reformed Churches. I'm still not writing a new language. And Jerry will open us in prayer. So I just want to introduce, first of all, the people who are seated here. Jerry Pillay from the World Communion of Reformed Churches is here to speak and support us. Fat Kassis is the general coordinator of Kairos Palestine from Bethlehem, here this week as well. And then we have several of us who are former moderators. There are 8 of us at this time who have agreed to sign this letter. Not all of us could be here, but these are the folks who were available this afternoon to be with us. So the first is Jack Rogers. And Jack, will you remind me the year that you served?
201, 202, 213th.
The 213th General Assembly. Patricia Brown, who served the 209th General Assembly and who just returned from the Mosaic trip to Israel and Palestine 2 weeks ago, Pat, or 3? About 3 weeks ago.
202, 203, and Jack gave me the cross.
And it was Jack who handed the moderatorial cross to Reverend Fahed Abu Akel. So you were the
202, 203.
And what number?
214.
The 214th moderator of the General Assembly. And Singman, who actually first served as the area coordinator for the Middle East for the Worldwide Ministries Division from what years to what year?
74 to 80.
From 1974 to 1980, and also then served as the moderator of the General Assembly. Which assembly was that, Singman?
212, just before that.
The 212th General Assembly. And I should note that Singman's name is missing on the list of moderators who are sponsoring and co-sponsoring this letter, because we just got word late this afternoon that he was available to do that. And again, my name is Rick Ufford-Chase. I was the moderator of the 216th General Assembly. So with that introduction, I will ask that Jerry open us in prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, as we gather here today, we are mindful that you are a God who stands for righteousness, truth, justice, peace, and love. But we also are reminded today that in the world there continues to be injustice, suffering, and oppression. As we gather here, we are mindful of what happens in the world around us. But particularly today, we are mindful of what happens in Palestine and Israel. And as we consider this, we are mindful of the sufferings of our people. We are mindful of oppression. We are mindful of injustices. And we do know that by the example of our Lord Jesus Christ, we are called to stand up and to speak against injustices. We are called to act again globally as we speak against oppression. So as we gather here to talk about Palestine and Israel, we ask your wisdom, we ask your leading, we ask your Holy Spirit's guidance, that you will give us courage, strength, and determination to stand up and to be counted be those who are to exemplify what Jesus stood for. So we do that now as we gather in this place and as we meet together. We give you thanks as we pray these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Before I give you context for this press conference, I want to add that there are lots of other people here who have been very supportive in the last 48 hours as we have struggled to get this letter together and to begin to find signers for it. Two who are very important to us are Rabbis Lynn Gottlieb and Brant Rosen, who are here with us as a sign of their solidarity with our effort. Though we have written an intentionally Christian letter from an intentionally Christian perspective, we are deeply grateful for their partnership in this work, and so glad that you can be with us today. Thank you. So a little bit of context. We came into this assembly knowing that there would be very careful discernment that would need to take place among the commissioners and advisory delegates regarding all of the concerns having to do with Israel and Palestine. This is nothing new. These conversations have been taking place primarily since Fahed served, and certainly since we began a process of phased selective divestment under the assembly that I was the moderator in 2004. So it's been 10 years that we've been having this conversation every time we've gathered together as a body. We came prepared to share our own stories and our own feelings, and to do that in the most positive way that we possibly could, and to recognize that it does no one any good when we demonize one another over disagreements. Some of our closest friends disagree with us on this matter, and they are equally passionate, and we understand that and we respect it. Having said that, on Friday afternoon, most commissioners, or at least many commissioners, received a personal email from a group of 29 other pastors across the country and two former moderators that actually laid out their concerns about the actions of the assembly, and in the letter made an accusation of guilt by association that we found deeply disturbing, lifting up an endorsement by David Duke of the document Zionism Unsettled, and suggesting that all of us who are working for divestment are guilty by association with that comment made unsolicited by David Duke. We found that deeply disturbing, and it does seem to us that it's an accusation that needs to be answered. So if we were to put a title to this press conference, it would be, "We refuse to be enemies." We will look for the way that we can be in relationship with one another that is healthy and positive in our disagreements, and it is critically important that the commissioners and the advisory delegates of this 221st General Assembly understand that there is a broad diversity of opinion across a spectrum, both theologically and politically, and that all of us have a right and an obligation to share our opinions with one another and to support one another in this difficult discernment. Having shared that background, I will now ask that the former moderators together read the letter that we have prepared to respond to the letter that was released on Friday by that other group of pastors. That letter, by the way, was called, can somebody remind me the name? An open letter? I can't remember.
Pastoral letter.
A pastoral open letter. You can find it on a series of blogs. It will not be difficult for you to find. So I will now turn first to, actually I'm going to start. I will start and then I will pass the microphone as we go. We refuse to be enemies. And a response to the open letter from former moderator John Buchanan and his colleagues. Sisters and brothers, we are deeply concerned about the open letter sent to the General Assembly Commissioners by John Buchanan and 28 of his colleagues on Friday, June 13th. We consider the signers of this letter our friends. Together we have been allies and colleagues in our shared work of reclaiming a vibrant church. However, we disagree sharply with their critique of the recommendation that the Presbyterian Church USA divest itself from the stock of 3 corporations that are doing business in a way that supports or benefits the State of Israel's occupation of Palestine. You have already, as commissioners and delegates, been inundated with diverse opinions about many issues facing the General Assembly. While this may seem to be in opposition to the Reformed tradition's understanding that God alone is Lord of conscience, we believe that in order for all of us to engage in measured and faithful discernment, we must be aware of the diverse opinions and perspectives that exist within our Presbyterian family. We share our conviction with passion, just as we trust our colleagues with whom we disagree will continue to do so. We offer the following three fundamental ideas that we find compelling, and a suggestion about how the General Assembly could move forward with the greatest possible integrity and commitment.
This is a matter of conscience. This is a matter of conscience. It is a reasonable thing and a moral obligation to assure that our financial investments reflect our core values as followers of Jesus. Our mission has done due diligence over the course of the last 10 years in engaging these three corporations. It is entirely clear that these companies are profiting from business that is counter to our social witness policy.
This is a faithful, principled response to our call for nonviolent resistance from the Palestinian people. Palestinians, both in Israel and the occupied territory of Palestine, and including the Christian leaders who signed the Kairos Palestine document in 2009, have called on us to embrace the principled use of boycott, divestment, and sanctions as a nonviolent strategy of resistance to the continual expansions of illegal settlement and the occupation of Palestine. Simply put, they have asked us to stop funding their oppression.
Our witness matters. No one cared about the presidential USA, believed about the evil of the decades-long occupation until we began to consider selling our stock. The reason we are struggling about this matter is because it is the only thing we have contemplated that actually has the potential to help change the reality of the occupation. This decision will lay the groundwork for peace with the justice and genuine security for all who live within both Israel and Palestine.
As we strive with our sisters and brothers across the church to be faithful in this difficult matter, our sense of conviction from the critical need to divest is shaped by the powerful words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from a Birmingham jail. First, I must confess that over the last few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to, quote, order, unquote, than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action. Who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a, quote, more convenient season, unquote. shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. When we choose to honor our conscience and follow our legacy of social corporate engagement, we actually claim the moral authority to stand against all instances of anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, or any act in which people really are targeted because of their religion or ethnicity or race, or for any other outrageous reason that people are discriminated against and targeted on a regular basis.
We propose Divestment Plus. Adoption of the divestment recommendation should push all of us to a more spiritually grounded and faithful place, a more holy ground. As we take this option, let us publicly commit our church to the work of defending the right of all people, starting with our sisters and brothers in the Abrahamic tradition. Wherever and whenever we can claim the power to do so, let us work with colleagues in all religious traditions from around the world to reclaim our sacred texts from those who would steal them for purposes that are antithetical and fundamental values of peace and harmony with one another.
In the end, we trust that God will be at work in this assembly and in your deliberations. We will hold you in prayer as you discern together how best to help all of us to be obedient to our call as followers of the risen Lord.
Thank you very much. In addition to those of us you see here, the former moderators you see here, Moderator Herb Valentine from the 203rd General Assembly, Moderator John Fife from the 204th General Assembly, Moderator Bruce Reyes-Chow from the 218th General Assembly have also asked that their names be added as signers to this letter and have expressed regret that they could not be with us this afternoon. I'll ask now if there are any brief, and I emphasize the word brief, comments from any of my colleagues that you would like to make, and then we'll read Archbishop Tutu's letter and then ask if there are any questions from any of you in the crowd. Are there any comments any of you would like to make? I knew there would be, Pat.
Thank you, Greg. Can you hear me now? No? Yes. Okay. Briefly, I want to say, having just returned from the Israeli-Palestine area, this is so significant a step that we as Presbyterians can take to demonstrate to the nation the need to stop putting money into an oppressed society. As Americans, we are spending tax dollars on arms, on walls, on issues that we need not be involved in. That was my opinion. But in essence, I am just saying that we need to begin the process. This is our opportunity to do that. We have seen things that I have never seen. I have been to South Africa. I have been arrested in the civil rights movement. And I am saying to you now, we have a responsibility to do something.
I want the commissioners and all of us to know the real facts. And the real facts is this, that the Presbyterian Church USA have never been anti-Judaism, anti-Israel, or anti-Semitic. In fact, there are more Presbyterian congregations open to synagogues to worship in us than any other Protestant denomination. And we work in the civil rights with all the Jewish people that work for human rights and civil rights all over the United States of America. And we never say we're going to divest from Israel. We don't have any, it's not our issue. We as good old Americans, we want to tell our own companies to divest from their harm of the occupation, support of the occupation in the West Bank and Gaza. So this is a very important. When somebody says, hey, we are divesting from Israel proper, that's a lie. We are divesting from American companies that are doing harm in the West Bank and in Gaza. So finally, I think we need to realize that we Americans don't see 2% of reality on the ground. We are living on the moon. I am a Palestinian Christian from Bethlehem, 6 miles from Jerusalem. I cannot go to Jerusalem without a permit. I cannot go to a hospital without a permit. I cannot go to a university without a permit. And we are not talking about Palestine proper going to Israel. We're talking about Palestinians going in Palestine to a hospital, to a university, to another place. So we really are standing on a good old Jewish tradition to do justice. And that's good for Israel and good for the Palestinians.
So I want to say one more thing before we ask if there are any questions and then read Archbishop Tutu's letter. I want to be clear that I am deeply grateful to be a part of this body, and that includes all of the former moderators, including our brother and sister John Buchanan and Susan Andrews, with whom we disagree on this matter. And in the same way, many of us who are doing the work to pass divestment this week know that we are divided from important and close colleagues and friends across the church, and we long for a day when we will stand together with one voice and one spirit on this matter. In the same way, we know that there are many, many Jewish people who are unhappy with the actions that we contemplate, and there are many, many Jewish people who feel very supported by the actions we contemplate this week. And we look forward to the day when all of us can sit down together for honest and thoughtful and respectful dialogue and debate and even disagreement, and step away from the table again knowing that we remain friends. Amen. Having said all of that, I'll just pause and ask if there are any questions, particularly if there are any folks from the press here. I'll ask you to speak first. Or are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask? We've used a lot of time. Okay, then we will be available to speak with you after. I'm going to read the letter that was sent to the Presbyterian Church USA and our General Assembly that we received yesterday from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I will read his words, and then I will ask Rifat Kassis, the General Coordinator of Kairos Palestine, to close us in prayer. From Archbishop Desmond Tutu to the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church USA. As the Presbyterian General Assembly gathers for its biennial meeting, I reach out in prayer and solidarity that the Assembly will make a strong witness for reconciliation, justice, and peace. I'm aware that the Assembly will consider 8 overtures on the confounding and intractable conflict in Israel and Palestine. However, I am especially urging the Assembly to adopt the overture naming Israel as an apartheid state through its domestic policies and maintenance of the occupation, and the overture calling for divestment of certain companies that contribute to the occupation of the Palestinian people. Both are worthy of adoption by speaking truth in the first instance and owning up to the Church's complicity in maintaining the occupation through its investments in the second. The sustainability of Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people has always been dependent on its ability to deliver justice to the Palestinians. I know firsthand that Israel has created an apartheid reality within its borders and through its occupation. The parallels to my own beloved South Africa are painfully stark indeed. Realistic Israeli leaders have acknowledged that Israel will either end its occupation through a one or a two-state solution or live in an apartheid state in perpetuity. The latter option is unsustainable and an offense to justice. We learned in South Africa that the only way to end apartheid peacefully was to force the powerful to the table through economic pressure. The overtures proposed at the General Assembly are not about delegitimizing the State of Israel, but about ending its suppression of 4 million Palestinian sisters and brothers. It's about naming an unjust system and refusing to participate in it. The stubbornness of Israel's leaders in wanting to hold on to and settling land that is not theirs can only lead to tragedy for both peoples. For the sake of them both, as God's cherished, the strong witness of the two overtures is the only peaceful route left in the cause of justice and ultimate reconciliation. My prayers today are with members of the General Assembly and with all the peoples of the Holy Land in Israel and Palestine. Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, South Africa, June 10th, 2014. And now, Rafat, if you would close us in prayer, please, I would be grateful.
Let us pray. Oh God, I pray for you today to be present and work in this assembly. I pray that you will guide and direct all commissioners and decision makers in this assembly. Show them your truth. Help them seeing that by their resolution to divest from the companies who are benefiting from the occupation, they are helping both people to reach a solution, a peaceful solution, which started to erode in this time. Help them seeing your truth, O God, and help all of us to find the right decisions and resolutions in this assembly. I pray for all and for everyone in this assembly. I pray for their families, for their friends, and I pray also for all our people in the Middle East, for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Help them both to see your truth, O God, and find a peaceful solution for this conflict.
And the people say,
Amen.
Thank you very much for coming. Have a wonderful afternoon.